Good afternoon and welcome to the November 13th, 2024 meeting of the Board of Estimate and Taxation. My name is Steve Brandt and I am the president of the board. Before we begin, I would like to ask our clerk, Amber Sinatra, to read something for the benefit of the public, board, and staff.
Thank you. Before we begin the meeting, I want to offer a friendly reminder to all members, staff, and the public that these meetings are broadcast live to enable greater public participation. These broadcasts include real-time captioning as a further method to increase the accessibility of our proceedings to the community. Therefore, all speakers need to be mindful of the rate of their speech so that our captioners can fully capture and transcribe all comments for the broadcast. We ask all speakers to moderate the speed and clarity of their comments.
Thank you. At this time, I'll ask the clerk's office to call the roll so that we can verify the presence of a quorum.
Commissioner Fry? Absent. Commissioner Abene?
Here.
Commissioner Payne?
Present.
Commissioner Chuktak?
Present.
Vice President Priest-Stinson?
Present.
President Brandt?
Here. Let the record reflect that we have a quorum. I now want to acknowledge that we meet today on the land of the Dakota. We'll now proceed to our agenda, a copy of which was posted for public access to the city's Legislative Information Management System, which is available at lims.minneapolismn.gov. May I have a motion to adopt the agenda?
So moved.
Second.
We have a motion properly before us. Is there any discussion? All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Ayes have it. The agenda is adopted. Next is the acceptance of minutes from the October 9th, 2024 meeting. May I please have a motion to accept the minutes?
So moved.
Second.
All right, we have a proper motion before us. Any discussion? That seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed say nay. Ayes have it. The minutes are accepted as presented. Item 4 on our agenda today is the acceptance of public comment. The clerk informs me that no one signed up to speak today, so we will continue with the next item on our agenda. I just want to remind the public that there is an opportunity for public comment on any item that is on a particular meeting's agenda. Item 5 is receiving the 2024 second quarter financial status report. I welcome our new city controller, George Hargrove, and Deputy CFO, Ra Choth, to give us that presentation.
Good afternoon, President Brandt, members of the Commission. My name is Ra Choth. I am the Deputy CFO for the City of Minneapolis. Today, I want to thank you for welcoming us to present the second quarter financial report, also known as a snapshot in time of the second quarter. We are currently working on the third quarter for the Budget Committee and also for BET. That will be coming out in a couple weeks. Having said that, I want to preface that due to the snapshot in time for the second quarter presentation here, some of these items are in flux. Before I begin, I want to highlight the financial highlights for the second quarter. We are continuing to see financial recoveries from the pandemic. Last year, Fitch and also Standard & Poor's confirmed our AAA bond rating. This year, around the September timeframe, I had the great fortune to be a part of the rating call, and both Fitch and also Standard & Poor's reaffirmed our AAA bond rating. I believe it's the statistics out there, it's only 9% of municipality earn this esteemed recognition. So kudos to the enterprise. We all had a part in this. Also, parking revenues are rebounding and are projected to recover to near pandemic levels. Another financial highlight, local taxes are projected to exceed the 2023 amount and will be exceeding budget for the third consecutive year. Another financial highlight. As far as ARPA spending, there has been a memo sent out between the Controller Division and also the Budget Division for our actual spend down, which is earmarked for the end of 2024. We are also going to send out to the federal government of our spend down so we can be in compliance. As far as our book value of cash and investment, we're approximately at $1.1 billion. It's just a slight decrease of about $34 million from last year's second quarter report. The city is also meeting fund balance and net position in a variety of funds, but just a few funds, predominantly self-insurance fund. Although we have a good cash balance in the self-insurance fund, our accrued long-term liabilities due to our actuarial studies put us into a negative net position. Also, the parking fund, cash balance is projected to end the year below target. That's because of the transfers to other fund. The deficit is only about negative $1.5 million, and property service cash balance is projected to fall below the target amount by year end, and that is due to the delayed capital repairs and also upgraded delay from the prior years. I will now introduce George Hargrove, our city controller, to talk about the various fund that makes up the enterprise. Thank you.
Yeah, thanks, Ra. Good afternoon, board members, President Brandt, commissioners. Yeah, I'm George Hargrove, the new controller here at the City of Minneapolis. It's a pleasure to see you all here today.
Welcome.
Thanks. I'm here to talk. I'll start off with kind of a little bit more detail now on some of the various funds that the city has. I'll start off with the general fund. That fund is really the basic operating fund for the city. It generally has the least restrictions. The restrictions are generally the only restrictions on it are put on by the city council and the mayor through the budget process. So it accounts, I think, for about 40% of the budget or so of the city of Minneapolis. As far as the fund balance, we are forecasting through, as of June 30th of this last summer, about $168 million fund balance. That's a $42 million decrease over the fund balance at the end of 2023. By policy, we should have at least 17%, so it's still quite a bit more than the $114 million fund balance target. The original budget did expect that the fund balance would decrease by about $18 million. And then subsequent to that, we rolled over last year, or at the end of last year and early this year, about $26 million to make the planned use of fund balance about $44 million or so. Otherwise, in terms of cash, we had about $231 million at the end of 2023. It now stands at about $58 million. So a lot of that is, I think, due to payments, especially property taxes, not hitting the books until after June 30th. So getting on to a little bit more details on the revenue side of it, you can see that property taxes on the graph on the far left is about 50% of the general fund. You can see that on the table below, we're projecting about $16 million less than the budget. A lot of that is due to an uncollectible amount. We generally reserve about 3% for uncollectible. That could be people appealing their tax, the tax value of their property, as well as people that just can't pay as well too. We record that in a different section, in the expense section. We also I want to point out the state aid here. You can see there's a $19 million deficit in that. So that is due to funds that were originally we thought we were going to get in 2024, but we actually got it in December of '23. So that rolled to the fund balance at the end of 2023. So those two things together make up most of the shortage in revenue for in the general fund for 2024 through the second quarter. And then moving on kind of into the timing of when the revenue hits the general fund, you can see about 10% of it hits in March, and then we up to about 20% total in June 30th, and then 60% September 30th, and then a little less than 95% at the end of the year. So yeah, it's definitely backloaded. You could kind of see that in the cash number from the previous slide, where we don't, we don't expect, to get the revenue until the second half of the year, for property taxes. And there's a lot of billing and things like that go on. You can see that we generally, we projected that we'll get about 95% of the budgeted amount. For the past 3 years, we tend to get more than that. We got about 105%. I think that reflects conservative forecasting, which we all try to do as best we can in the forecasts. So that's kind of the timing of the revenue. You can see a lot of it is backloaded towards the end of the year. And moving on here, we can talk about the expenditure side. You can see that about half the general fund on the expenditure side is dedicated to public safety. So that certainly takes up, like I say, a good percentage of the funds. That one we expect to be about $4 million over budget at this time, which, like Ross said, we're updating that for the third quarter now. And then you can see, looking at this chart here, a big variance is between the budget for the expenses and the projected. You can see we're about $14 million under in internal services, but most of that is being held by finance and HR. Finance is holding about $11.5 million for the North Commons Park and the public safety aid, as well as the community safety center as well too. And then I believe there's some funds for compensation increases in the HR department as well too. You can see everything else is pretty close to budget except all other expenses at the bottom of the chart here, and that I think is generally the contingency, which is about $23 million, and we don't have we're not forecasting any of that to be spent at this time. Moving on. Just in terms of the timing of the expenditures, they come in a little bit faster than the revenue. You can see we're about 20% in March, 40% in June, 70% in September, about 95% at the end of the year. Again, it's a little bit backdated. We do accrual accounting, so at the end, we have to record both, December invoices that we get for 2024, and then we get invoices in January too as well for 2024 that we put back into the 2024 year. We expect to spend, we tend to project a little bit under budget, about 95% or so, and then it's kind of how things have ended up, about 95% under budget, again, reflecting conservative forecasting. Then moving on to a cousin of the general fund, that's the special revenue funds. Unlike the general fund, it's generally unrestricted. Special revenue kind of comes with strings attached, generally outside laws, possibly by the state or even the federal government. You can see significant special revenue funds as the Convention Center, the Target Center, the Police Department. Has some gambling forfeiture funds. The big one is grant funds, which of course Community Planning and Economic Development, CPED, has quite a bit of funds. So again, there's strings attached to that. Certainly it amounts to quite a bit of funds for the city, but again, there's restrictions. Getting on to how much do we have, the fund balance, which is all the assets that the funds have less any liabilities against them. That tends to be, that's about $425 million, about a $10 million increase from last year. Most of that is CPED, held in trust for to finance their programs, as well as the Downtown Assets Program. You can see the cash is at $381 million, to $76 million decrease. from year end. Most of that is, you can see by the fourth bullet point down there, is ARPA funding, which we tend to spend out totally by the end of this year. We plan to charge out the remaining balance to a revenue replacement, and then report that to the federal government, and then we can close the books. All those funds, I believe, were received several years ago when the legislation was first passed back in 2021. And at the end, we classify the fund balances for this. We're required to do that by government accounting standards into the different categories. Keep in mind that some of these funds may have a big fund balance, but not a lot of cash because they may have assets or so. And if we go to the next slide, you can kind of see that a little bit in the special revenue. You can see the various fund balances and the cash, for all the major areas there. You can see the convention center. We try to maintain about a 15% cash reserve, fund balance reserve there, about 10% for the arena. Downtown assets doesn't have a target. And then I'd point out under the grant funds, you can see the cash. It was like at $100 million at the end of 2023. Now we're projecting at $15 million. That reflects the ARPA funds that are going to be used up at the end of the year, which is a good thing because we do have to have that all obligated by year end as well too. And so you can certainly see a lot of the downtown assets certainly has a pretty big fund balance, and again, most of that is cash as well as assets that they own. And then you can see even bigger than that is CPED, which has quite a bit of cash that's invested with their trustees. Moving forward, the next category of funds is the internal service funds. These are what we call business or proprietary type funds. They generally account for internal sales. Not a lot of sales to the general public, but they do provide goods and services to the other city departments and funds. This includes things like an engineering lab in Public Works. It does concrete testing, things like that. Equipment funds like fleet as well. A lot of that is vehicles and trucks and things like that. Property services has quite a bit of assets as well in the internal service fund. Our stores that maintains materials, so they're close to the workers, commonly used things. And of course, we have self-insurance, which accounts for severance pay liabilities as well as medical, dental, workers' comp, things like that. You can see our net position at the end of the year was about $88 million. That's about $1 million decrease from 2023. And then you can see cash is at $196 million, which is about a $16 million increase. Most of the assets are in fleet, and then most of the cash is in the self-insurance fund. It kind of makes sense because fleet is kind of a what I would say, kind of an asset-rich internal service area. But like I say, it's really it's all tied up in the equipment as well, so it's not easily liquidated. This reflects consistent spending in accordance with budgeted amounts and investments in projects and services. So we try to keep, like I say, targets on the fund balance, so we can maintain our AAA bond rating. Moving on, just to take a little closer look at all the internal service funds. You can see, like I said, a lot of it is equipment services, which I call fleet, about $77 million in assets, $11 million of it's in cash. We also have property services, which again has a lot of assets, a lot of buildings, not quite so much cash as Rob mentioned earlier. And then you can see the mirror image of that is, or the opposite image of that is the self-insurance fund, which has quite a bit of cash, but also has lots of liabilities that have grown quite a bit in the last 5 years or so. So that does have a $53 million negative balance right now. Certainly something we'll take another look at year end and everything, what the liabilities are, and something I want to pay close attention to. Moving on, I think to the last group of funds here is the enterprise funds. Again, these are business type funds, but unlike the internal service funds, these are generally external sales outside of the city. Certainly the biggest ones are the sewer, the stormwater, the regular water, solid waste, parking. And And then, of course, CPID has as well as enterprise funds too. I believe, it's money set aside to work with developers and economic development projects. Again, the net position is about 1.1 billion. About almost 900 million of that is made up of the water, stormwater, sewer. They're heavy on the assets, but it's not real liquid type assets. It's pretty hard to sell off the sewer system and things like that. So again, most of it's tied up in fixed investments here in the city. Cash wise, we had about 112 million, $11 million increase from 2023. Most of this cash is also in those enterprise funds that I mentioned above too as well too. Cash has been fairly stable. We did plan some decreases in the stormwater and the water for capital spending. That really hasn't occurred yet, but we do plan for that as of now. And then lastly, if we want to take a little more detailed look at it, you can see we have like I say, the sewer with quite a bit of money and assets in the net position, as well as the stormwater, 373 million is net position, another 344 million in the water enterprises. Like I say, most of the fund balance is made up of the water assets, with some in the solid waste area too. And then, of course, the other side of it is CPED, or community planning economic development area, which has assets, but we don't show any cash because that's being held by invested with outside trustees. So that's a snapshot of the second quarter financials, again, as of June 30th. Obviously, we're 3-4 months past that now, so things have changed. We're busy working on the third quarter financials and hope to have an update for you on that in the next couple of weeks here. But at this time, I stand for any questions.
Thank you for your presentation. Do my colleagues have any questions? Commissioner Payne.
Thank you, President Brandt. I was wondering if you could just help me enlighten my understanding. I don't remember what slide number it was, but you had showed the use of general funds, and it looked like Public Works was very, very small on that list relative to the scale. So is it be an accurate understanding on my part to recognize that a lot of Public Works activity is funded through Enterprise Fund or Internal Services Fund?
Yes, Commissioner Payne. Yes, most of it is on the enterprise fund side. I think for Public Works, there is the biggest thing I'd say in the general fund is like the maintenance and repair budget, to work on the streets and things like that. The rest of it is only in the I guess, traffic and parking services has quite a bit too. Between those two, they have about 60 million in the general fund. The rest is pretty inconsequential. Yeah. So a lot of it is the special revenue.
Thank you.
First of all, I'd like to thank you for answering the questions I sent you in advance of the meeting. Answers always beget more questions. I don't expect you to have the answers necessarily right now because you're relatively new on the job, and I'm catching you unawares in that sense. But the first one should be relatively easy, and that is, I believe you said that the requirement is that ARPA funds be obligated by the end of the year. That means, I assume, under contract or whatever. Does it look, and you've reminded the departments of that, does it look like we're going to leave any ARPA money on the table?
No, President Brandt. No, it's a good, excellent question. No, from my view, we've been working to make sure we can spend that down. And the way, what the strategy, what we're doing here is using the revenue replacement portion of ARPA. That my understanding is we've already proven that we've lost, plenty of revenue. So whatever we don't have spent down at the end of this year, we can charge to that project, and that'll result in a credit to the general fund. It'll help the general fund, and then charge the ARPA fund, and then we'll report that to the federal government. So I don't think we'll have anything at all, or very little, that goes unspent at the end of this year.
I've advocated during the city's budget difficulties caused by the pandemic for a drawdown of the budget reserve as a temporary measure. I know that's not sustainable for the long term. And you said, obviously, we have that 17% policy, and never hurts to have a little cushion above that 17%. But what, do you have any sense of what they and I know you're not Mr. Blanking on his name. Our debt,
Alan?
Alan, yes. What's the difference in basis points, if you know, between the current ratings that the city enjoys and, say, a one-step downgrade in terms of, you have a sense of that?
Yeah, there is a point, that's an excellent question, President Brandt. There is a point at which we would get put on credit watch if our balances went down below a certain point. I don't know the point right now that where we'd go to, AA or things like that. I can research that and get back to you. That again, it's kind of a subjective question because it may depend on the rating agency and things like that. And they obviously look at other things like how much future revenue and things you may get, or what's coming down the pipe, or what liabilities you may have too. So they do look at everything together. But no, it's definitely a question on my mind too when people ask, what's sustainable. I think the AAA bond rating is good to have. It certainly makes the city look good, and as well as it enables us to borrow money at the very cheapest rate. But I can get back to you on that. I can check to see at what point is it likely we'll get downgraded. Yeah.
Actually, my question isn't so much at what point would we get downgraded potentially, but what would the difference in basis points in our interest costs be between the AAA we have now and, let's say, the next step down, which probably would be a AA plus or something of that sort. And then what would that difference mean for each, say, 1%? Well, let's say each $1 million we have outstanding, or each $100 million we have outstanding in terms of our average portfolio. Just trying to get a sense of the, and if you have any questions about that, my questions, feel free to follow up with me.
Yep. Well, President Brandt, I'm just speaking for prior experience I had and forecasting debt for infrastructure projects. I mean, these are, I come from the county system, so I worked a lot on light rail and bus rapid transit and things like that as well too. We did investigate that. And so just speaking from a couple of years ago when I worked with Baker Tilly, I think we're talking about 1 or 2% possibly that we would pay more. Like I say, I'm just speculating based on numbers they showed me. I mean, this is a different situation. It's not the counties or Hennepin or Ramsey County. But I mean, I think it's somewhere in that ballpark. But I can get back to you with a little bit more on what our debt, how much more the debt would go up. But I believe it is going to be 1 or 2 basis points or so, something around then. Yeah.
Thank you. I asked also about the implications of the projected $36 million negative variance in the general fund, and you answered, and you said that the mayor's budget has a recommended $19 million in fund balance usage for 2025. Given the projected 2024 year-end general fund balance and the additional proposed $19 million drawdown in 2025, where could we project that we would be at year-end 25 compared to that 17% policy?
Okay, let me look, President Brandt, let me look at my notes here. Okay, so we're projecting that the fund balance will be at about $168 million right now in the general fund. If we were to pass the mayor's budget, I think that's going to go down about 20 million more, assuming we ended up right on budget. So I think we're looking at about 148 or so million.
And do you have a feel for what that would be in terms of percentage
of the total?
Of the compared to the 17% policy?
compared to the 17% policy. 17% policy. Okay, let me look at President Brandt. Yeah, let me look at my notes here. Okay, so we're projecting that the fund balance will be at about $168 million right now in the general fund. If we were to pass the mayor's budget, I think that's going to go down about 20 million more, assuming we ended up right on budget. So I think we're looking at about 148 or so million.
And do you have a feel for what that would be in terms of percentage? Are we still up in the 20s?
I believe so. Yeah, I'd have to look at the books a little bit and get the calculator out. But I think we're talking low 20s. Yeah.
Okay, thank you. And then I think you made clear that although the Convention Center Fund and the Target Center Operating Fund have minimums, the Downtown Assets Fund doesn't have a fund balance policy. And I'm wondering, obviously you must do forecasting. Is there a minimum figure, even if it's not expressed in terms of percentage, that you shoot for so that you can adequately fund the Target Center Operating Fund, the Convention Center Operating Fund, anything else that's paid through the Downtown Assets Fund, including, let's say, continuing the amount of general fund subsidy that we're trying to return to as things recover. Is there a percentage target that you shoot for, nevertheless, in terms of having cash on hand or having a cushion for each of those, after having a cushion left after you pay for each of those?
President Brandt, I think it'd be best if I really want to take a look at those liabilities a little bit more. Obviously it does cover the Convention Center and the Target Center. What I'm not as familiar with is, how much of it do we need to subsidize other areas of the city, and what happens if that subsidy were to go away? I think those are all questions maybe in my mind about what would happen if we set a policy there. I do know that it's generally a holding area of the sales tax that we collect and things like that. So it doesn't necessarily in itself have assets, but it's used to fund a lot of other areas. I got to take a look at what the liabilities are against that. Ron, unless you.
Yeah,
I would appreciate that. And I think what you're telling me is it's essentially a pass-through fund.
Yeah, it collects revenue from the sales tax that we get, from the Department of Revenue, from the state, and then the policymakers certainly redirect the funds to where they feel it's needed in the city.
The projected net position of the self-insurance fund is worrisome, but certainly understandable given what we've been through for the last 5 years. I asked about breaking it out by its main components, and I think you indicated you don't have that capability, but you hope to get that with the new ERP. But surely you must know how much of the self-insurance net position is attributable to the liability portion versus the worker comp portion versus the insurance premiums and severance?
Yeah, President Brandt, I do believe we have just the liability part, but the asset part may be harder to break down. I could look into that for you if you'd like
the
me to get back to you.
The liability part is the key one in my mind.
Okay.
And is there any sort of a workout plan in effect for either the overall self-insurance fund or the liability portion of the fund?
I don't, Rod, is there a plan in place? I haven't heard of one during my short tenure here at the city right now of how we're going to restore that. What I want to do is relook at those liabilities, given how much they've gone up over the last 5 years. I mean, are they still valid or not? But that's definitely something that I'm very interested in to take a look at.
Very good, thank you. Are there any further questions? All right, well, thank you for that presentation. I will ask the clerk to receive and file the presentation. Our next item was going to be to approve the information request memo protocol that we discussed at our September 18th meeting. At the request of the city clerk's office, I'm going to move to postpone that item to our December 11th meeting. It still needs a legal review. Do I have a second? Okay. Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye. Aye.
Opposed? Motion is passed. Our Item number 7 is the bond transmittal memo that informs us of accessible projects from the City Council, for which the board will consider approving the issuance of tax-exempt GO bonds at a future date. This is a receive and file item, so unless my colleagues have any questions, I'll ask the clerk to receive and file it. Any questions? All right, thank you. Announcements are next on our agenda. Does anyone have any announcements? I will make one announcement, and that is we are now in the 8th month of our request to fill the position of Executive Secretary or Senior Manager, take your pick, for the Board of Estimate. And I am informed by HR that they still were unable to make a recommendation in time for this meeting to on the number of hours that this position should occupy, which seems to be the last thing holding it up. It's easier now for me to understand why the city is having such difficulty filling vacancies in the police department, given this experience. But I wanted to notify members that I've talked to our deputy city attorney, and he said that if we run out of patience on that score, that we have the ability to set those hours ourselves without waiting for a recommendation. And my inclination is if we don't have a recommendation by the December, I think it's 11th meeting, to come forward with a proposal for discussion to set the hours so we can get this position out on the streets. Any Commissioner Priest-Stinson?
I know we're not discussing it, but I just want to say that I resonate with that. Patience is one thing, but it's just what's needed. And, it's not to shame or blame anyone, but I just want to name just how incredibly difficult that it has been, especially being in our first elected term, to be working under these conditions. And so it's a disservice to us, but it's also a disservice to those that are relying on us to do this work well. So I am in support of moving that way. And then on a side note, if I may, I think it's appropriate to announce that I am in remission, which is fabulous.
Oh, fantastic.
I think that is good for the public to know. And I have one more surgery ahead of me before the end of the year, and so I'm ready to continue cooking with grease, as I like to say, and remain committed to our work. And so I want to thank everyone for their patience and support during what has been an extremely difficult time. But still I rise and smile, so thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Priest-Stinson, for that wonderful news. We've completed all the business to come before us, and without objection, we stand adjourned.